Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to another True Crime Time with Junebug. That's me. And I didn't mean to, but I kind of just blend into my background with the black headband and the black shirt. But, well, I already started recording, and this is what we get. You may see Susan, Dinky Sue, wandering around. She was just on my lap. She's being very needy. But she appears to have gone to look out the window. So she may be back, she may not. I don't know. But in the last video, if you saw to the very end, I mentioned that I may or may not do this case. I did decide to do it. I do want to give like a warning. It can get pretty graphic. Not in like outright murders, or it's not a serial killer. It's nothing like that. It's just, I think because in our, like, to me, it seems more realistic. I put quotes around that. Like, it just disturbs me more. We'll get into it. But today we are going to talk about Lacey Ellen Fletcher. And I actually stumbled upon learned about this case, weirdly enough, from one of those weird little Snapchat stories. Like if you go to your story section and they have all those clickbaity things. I fell for this. Then I was like, okay, let's see if it's legit. So I went to the Googles, and it's legit. And I was horrified because I know sometimes, at least especially now, there's a lot of more AI generated true crime. So I thought maybe that's what Snapchat was doing to try to get some clicks. But nope, this is legit and this is horrifying. So yeah, it's real. But yes, we're talking about Lacey Ellen Fletcher. This takes place between about 2010 to January 3rd of 2022. So pretty recently, well, when it ended. And I always say the age of the victim in case anything with children bothers you, but in this case, no matter what the age, this would have bothered me. And she is 36. Oh, Susan has to scratch the scratching post. 1 minute. Okay, she's done. But this takes place in Slaughter, Louisiana, which I was like, that's the name. Doesn't seem very fitting for this, but you know, here we go. But the small little silver lining is that it is a solved case. It'd be kind of hard not to have this solved, but we'll get into it. So I always start with some pop culture references in case you want to learn more. Well, in this case, learn more because it's such a newer case. But also it's not something that might be referenced in a movie or anything. So this is if you want to learn more info. So there is a Rotten Mango podcast, like slash documentary. On IMDb, it says it's like a documentary podcast. So take that for what you will. And that came out in 2024. There is a, the title of the podcast kind of creeps me out a little bit, but Body Bags with Joseph Scott Morgan, which is another podcast documentary thing that also came out in 2024. Then there are some books. The one's called The Girl on the Couch by Sam Shadow. That came out in 2024. But I do want to note it had very bad reviews. I should put it out. I want to put it out there that this book is a thing. But all the reviews I saw, there was maybe one nice review. So maybe don't read that one. But it is available. Now there's also, I saw 2 different titles for this book. One I first saw, it was called The Girl Who Melted into the Couch, or I also saw it called, based on a true story, The Lacey Fletcher Tragedy, Autism, Neglect, and a Fatal Isolation. Much longer of a title, but it is by Adria Fabrian. It looks like Fabrian, but I feel like it's not Fabrian. And that came out this year, actually, not another 2024 thing. I didn't see any reviews for that either. It could be because it's still, I think it came out in March. It's still pretty new. Now, there's obviously many more things. These are the first main ones I found. So obviously there's probably more things out there if you want to learn more. So let's get into the case. So Lacey Ellen Fletcher was born November 25th of 1985 in Slaughter, Louisiana, to Sheila and Clay Fletcher. I'm 99.9% sure she was an only child. If she wasn't, somehow, I got words for that other sibling, but 99% certain she's the only child. She was autistic, I saw she was generally a high functioning autistic, especially when she was younger. And it said she dealt with bullying a lot, which unfortunately I'm not saying it's okay, but it just seems to be more common, unfortunately, for people on the spectrum. But she dealt with bullying in school, primarily in high school. I saw she loved volleyball. She was on the team in middle school, and she really liked Disney movies. Maybe not really like, she loved Disney movies. I read in one of the articles that a former teacher of hers and many others said along the same lines that they thought she was really sweet, and I saw like some people thought she was like precious. They said she had a beautiful smile and she just had these big eyes. And I've seen the like most common picture floating around of her. It is not a current one, obviously, but I honestly think she looks cute as a button. And then later, due to the bullying, like when she reached high school age, her parents would take her out of school, and they would start to homeschool her. I don't know if she would actually like graduate from homeschool. Like I don't know if they actually taught her. I wouldn't be surprised if they didn't, but I didn't see any confirmation if they did or didn't. It was also said about her that her parents were annoyed. They would complain a lot about her and her like needs, saying they wanted to just be parents. They did not want to be caregivers, which I feel like you got to give the care when you're a parent, personally. I may not have children, but I feel like it's a 2-in-1 situation. And you never know what kind of child you're going to get. So you got to be prepared for the fact that that child may need you more or may have special needs. Like it happens. So that was a bit like, okay, maybe you shouldn't have had a kid, but well, they really shouldn't have, but we'll get to that. Now, I'm not 100% sure of the timeline. I tried to find a more specific timeline, but I couldn't find one. But it seems like Lacey last had like medical or like mental help from any sort of doctor in 2002. So 20 years prior to this case ending. Her health on the mental side would take a turn for the worse, it seems, at some point. I'm gonna say around 2010. That's a guesstimation with the timeline. And at some point when she like went home and stopped wanting to go outside, if it was her choice not to like leave the house again, she would sit in or lay on the couch. I don't know how she started originally, but she would never get off that couch again. And this started in like 2010, because on January 3rd, 2022, remember this starts about 2010, she sat on that couch. And then on January 3rd of 2022, Lacey's mom, Sheila, would call 911 saying she found Lacey dead on the couch. They would attempt, quotes around that, because they didn't really attempt, CPR on her, like when they were on the phone with 911 and they give you instructions on how to do CPR. But when help arrived, they discovered how bad the situation actually was. CPR could not save her. Now again, I can't seem to find like a specific timeline, especially when it spans that 12 years. I do and I don't wish I had an exact timeline. Part of me, yes, so I could be a bit more accurate with this, but I don't, because ignorance is bliss, unfortunately. So we're gonna jump ahead a bit again. It was basically 12 years until 911 got this call. And it turns out they found her dead because they were actually on vacation. So they came home and found her dead. So great parents. So when help arrived, they realized how bad the situation was, because yes, she was dead. That was true. But she was only partially clothed. She was so malnourished. She was just 96 pounds, which granted, 96 isn't a healthy weight, but she never looked to be like overweight or anything. And I don't know her height, but still 96 is quite slim. And she was, quotes around this, fused to the couch. That's why at the beginning there was the title of the book called The Girl Who Melted into the Couch, she was, in a sense, melting into the couch. But it gets worse. It's just brace yourselves. I'll just jump ahead. She was, again, melting, quotes around that, to the couch due to her being covered in her own feces and urine. Because she just, like, they didn't give her a bedpan. I saw that they did start with, like, putting towels on the floor around her instead of, like, trying to take her to the bathroom. But I think they just gave up on that too when she just started going where she was, unfortunately. And now, due to all of the feces and the urine, maggots were all around her and on her, and I saw that some of them were actually, like, in her, which I don't even want to know what that would feel like. And she was actually thought to have died a couple days prior to them calling 911. So that's when I said, yes, CPR wasn't going to help her, because she's been dead for days at this point, because they were on vacation. Yeah, she died while they were on vacation. They get home and call 911 thinking she just died. I doubt they thought that, but I don't know what they're thinking. I don't like them. I'm gonna put that out there. Call it a controversial opinion, but I don't like them. Now, because they obviously took Lacey, they did an autopsy, and according to the coroner, and as you could have guessed based off of the timeline I gave, Lacey's parents left her on that couch for 12 years. Obviously, she wasn't dead the whole time. She'd only been dead the few days, but she was alive on that couch for 12 years. Turns out they barely fed her. They would have had to feed her something, at least, for her to survive 12 years. I don't know the exact, like, range us humans can go without food, but I think it's like a week or two. It's not 12 years, I know that. They obviously didn't clean her up. Their entire house was clean. Literally every speck of everything around Lacey was clean, but where she was covered in feces and urine and maggots and all other sorts of nasty things. They didn't get her any medical attention, as we could have guessed, and the fact that I mentioned the last time it seemed she got any medical attention was in 2002, so 20 years ago, when this is taking place. They, like, barely seemed to pay any attention to her. It was almost like she was just a vase in their house, the way they treated her. Heck, they were probably nicer to the vases. And how I mentioned they were on vacation when she passed away, that wasn't a one-time thing. They would go on vacations all the time. Just leave her. No babysitter, no nothing, just bye-bye. It's just, again, I don't like them. So yeah, they just leave her to starve while they went to, I don't know, Bahamas or wherever these shitty people went on vacation. It was also revealed during her autopsy that she most likely tried to move or get up at some point, but her muscles had atrophied so bad, like she just couldn't physically do it anymore. She was also found to have feces and bits of couch under her fingernails and in her stomach contents, meaning she tried to save herself by eating her surroundings, which is horrible. I don't know any other word that's worse than horrible. Atrocious, horrible, disgusting that she had to go through that. There's not enough words. Her cause of death was not starvation, however, which you would think, but it wasn't. Her cause of death was actually bone infections that led to sepsis. Because I believe, not every article said it, so I don't want to say it's like 100%, that some of her bones were just exposed from the maggots and being atrophied, that due to that and her unsanitary living situation just create infections and then sepsis because her parents didn't get her any medical attention or even attempt to clean her, it seems like. So that was the technical cause of death, but they also listed a homicide as her cause of death due to obvious neglect from her parents, which I think we can agree. Now, due to this, in May of 2022, her parents were arrested and charged with second-degree murder. They made bail, somehow. From what I saw, it was quite a decent chunk of change. Then I don't know who dismissed it or why, but a freaking judge dismissed the case / charge, but then they were reindicted for murder by a grand jury in June 2023. So that jury was smart. Now here's some trial info, because again, I don't know all the details. I tried to look up trial timeline, Lacey Fletcher trial, just anything that could give me like a what happened in court. But I didn't see much, so you get cliff notes from me. Now I didn't really see any details about it, but they both would plead. They would end up pleading no contest in exchange for like a lesser sentence / lesser conviction. So it's manslaughter instead of second-degree murder, which neither of them are great. Just want to put that out there. But they were like charged and sentenced on February 6th of 2024. So just a little over a year ago. I did see that at some point during their trial, which I don't know if they had a full trial, if they just pleaded no contest, but they were claiming that like they loved her like to death, literally. But they also were saying like the couch was Lacey's safe space. She didn't want to leave. Like that was the defense, I guess. Oh, so no, it was on February 6, 2024 that they pleaded no contest. But on March 20th of 2024, they were both sentenced to 20 years in prison with a consecutive 20-year suspended sentence. Granted, they're in their 60s, so they'll get out in their 80s. And they'll be put most likely into a nursing home if they're not able to care for themselves. And they will still probably get better care than the care they gave their own daughter. I hope they have a shitty nurse. And still, even if they have the shittiest nurse, it'd still be better care than what they gave their daughter. So now that the brief consequences and trial section is over, let's get into the aftermath and just why? Why? Now, as far as I can tell, both of her parents are alive. Granted, it was only a year ago they were sentenced, but you never know. They are both alive and in prison. I couldn't find exactly where they're like serving their sentences, but I'm going to assume it's different prisons. Like one's a dude prison, one's a women prison, but I'm not 100% certain. I think it'd be fair if they took them apart, but I don't know. But Lacey was laid to rest on January 11th of 2022 at the Hillcrest Memorial Gardens and Mausoleum. And again, she was only 36 years old. But you could argue she really got to stop having a life 12 years prior to that. So 24. Now, as to why they did this, no one really knows. There's been theories that they were using her disability checks, because I assume that's what she was going to be sent if she couldn't leave the house, like if she truly couldn't leave the house. And maybe that's how they were able to afford these vacations and stuff. Oh, side note, I forgot to put it in, but her parents were like well liked in the community. Her mom, I believe, used to work for the mayor or something in like local government. I want to say her dad was a cop, but that could be very, very wrong. Don't take my word for it, but it was jobs that, you know, they were well respected up until this point. So there's the theory that they could have been using her disability checks, although they should have been making plenty of money on their own. She could have had, I saw people theorize she had locked-in syndrome, which is basically someone isn't able to move, but they're still like here. Like the brain is still them and they can communicate through like blinking and Morse code of the eyes. Which doesn't sound great, but again, if your child has that, you gotta take care of them still. I did see theories that sexual abuse could have been happening because they found like maggots in and around that area. But I don't know if it's just because it's a crevice and it's like warm, if bugs just like that. I saw like 1 or 2 things that said there was indications of sexual abuse, but I don't know for certain, but it's a theory. Or they were just straight up shitty / evil people. That's very highly likely. Or it could be a combo of something. I could see them just being shitty people and wanting her disability checks. Oh, I guess there's also the theory that Lacey when this first started, truly didn't want help or was just very insistent on like, no, this couch is my safe space. Don't take it from me. And so instead of like having to deal with that, they just let her be and just got way out of hand. But as parents, I feel like at some points you have to just, she was so tiny at the end, just pick her up and take her to the hospital or something. Like I feel like there's no excuse. Even if this is what Lacey insisted she wanted at the beginning, there's signs that she tried to escape or save herself, as we saw earlier in the video. So I don't know what 100% I believe. Again, leaning towards they just shitty people. They didn't want to be, as I said, caregivers, just parents, which they go together. I just feel like they shouldn't have had kids. And I can see definitely the disability checks, they wanting those. But they suck. I don't like them. How many times do I say that? Take a shot every time I say I don't like them. But that is it for today. It's not a ton of info, but there's other sources you can look into. And this is just, it's a rough case. Thank you for tuning in. I will link her Find a Grave so you can leave like kind words, or I think you can donate like flowers in their name, or maybe plant a tree. It's one of those. But thank you for tuning in. Sorry it was a bit rough. Next time, going back across the pond again. It might be a while. I didn't realize how big the case was, but it's okay. No one's really waiting. Well, thank you. Bye.